Hi, my name is Danielle Dean, and I'm here at Spike Island in Bristol in my show called This Could All Be Yours. The exhibition is about how things that surround us, or things that we maybe inherit, like the place that we grow up or the films that we watch, have an influence on our lives and how they can shape both our subjectivities but also the possibilities of what kind of life we can lead. The main work in the show is a 30-minute film called Hemel. It basically started off with me looking at a film that was shot in the 50s in the town Hemel Hempstead. And this is a sci-fi film that was shot there called Quartermass II. And in the sci-fi film, basically the narrative is that meteorites enter into Hemel and are collected by local workers in a factory who are subsequently possessed by these meteorites. In this possession, they're summoned to cultivate these meteorites into into black goo that then turns into a black monster that infiltrates the town and threatens it to destroy the town and then the world. I was interested in taking that fiction and thinking about it in relation to the real context of the town. Essentially, Hemel is a town that is a new built town that was built in the 50s at the same time as the film was being made. And the premise of the town was to build it close to the factories so that a lot of the people who lived in Hemel, including my granddad, would move there having had a job in the factory. So you would be offered a home in this town if you worked in the factory a certain amount of times. I was just interested in that history in relation to the present. So how is this utopian vision of Hemel playing out now? Amazon was one of the biggest employers in Hemel. Now it's actually closed, which created another sort of situation in the town. Dan, who's in the film and in some of the works behind me, and Harvey, who's also an Amazon worker and the singer of the band in the film, they both talked about the working conditions, but I tried to sort of slip it within the fiction. So instead of saying Amazon, they say the corporation, which references the corporation in the original films. The film itself, Hemel, is screened within a community centre that's featured in the film. Within this community centre, there's bunting, which, we don't have so much in community centres anymore particularly, but it referenced the original film, and posters that came out of the film that was telling people not to talk about what was going on in the factory. There's black and white crisps, glasses of black liquid. The main idea actually was to ask audiences to come in and sit at a table in the community centre. And the biggest thing I was thinking about in relation to that was the ways that these public spaces that are positive, they're about community, but for who? Because sometimes my experience of coming into certain spaces like that has not always been welcoming. And so then the other spaces are also, maybe like set slices of the community centre or sets of the spaces. So the first one that you see is the bar. There's also a series of watercolours throughout the show, actually. There's one that's featured in the back of the bar. There's some that are framed, but the main featuring of them is this corridor area that holds these watercolors and shows them in a way that maybe references something like an antique store or a thrift store where you get to flick through. I was thinking about the nostalgia or the kind of relationship art might have to real towns like Hemel. Well, within the work, I did get the opportunity to work with some students at the school that I myself went to in Hemel, and that was really great. It kind of actually came about in an accidental way, but it became so important with the project to work with these young people because they represent a potential for the future. At the end of the film, it ends in a kind of both negative and positive way. Like the ending is in some ways a tragedy has happened and there's empty streets, but then you do also catch a glimpse of the students again, and they're potentially on some sort of protest, or it's not clear exactly what they're doing. And so I wanted to slip those things together, so it's like when tragedy happens, there's a potential for something else to replace it, right? And for a renewal to happen. And we don't know exactly what that will look like. It could be similar or it could not be. And so I just wanted the ending to be open and to be full of potential.